Legacy Precious Metals is the company that I trust to give you good and patient counsel for investing in your retirement. The Biden administration has caused a financial crisis and they have no clue how to fix it. Oil prices have skyrocketed, and when oil prices go up, not only do your expenses go up, but the cost of transportation and shipping spikes, leading the prices of goods to rise. And we are already seeing record inflation. That's the last thing that we need. Our economy is in trouble, and you need to take steps to protect yourself. If all your money is tied up in stocks, bonds, and traditional markets, you may be vulnerable. So gold is one of the very best ways to protect your retirement. No matter what happens, you own your own gold. It's real, it's physical, and it's always been valuable since the dawn of time. Call Legacy Precious Metals today at 866-528-1903 or visit them online at legacypminvestments.com. That's legacypminvestments.com, where you can download the free investor's guide. You can also go to my Facebook page, Jenna Ellis. I am a public figure on Facebook, and I just posted yesterday a really great interview with the president of Legacy Precious Metals, who is discussing why you need to start your retirement account even if you're in your 20s or 30s. There is always a great time to protect your retirement and invest, just like you want to protect your health over the long term. So go to Legacy Precious Metals at legacypminvestments.com or call 866-528-1903.
As a constitutional law attorney, former senior legal advisor, and personal counsel to President Donald J. Trump, Jenna Ellis believes in the rule of law and the importance of integrity in our elections. And she's ready to tackle the big cultural and legal issues facing America. This is the Jenna Ellis Show. Here is your host, Jenna Ellis.
Happy Monday, friends, and welcome to another episode of the Jenna Ellis Show. I'm Jenna Ellis, and of course, always want to bring you the latest legal updates as we find them. And so there have been a number of cases that have made their way through state Supreme Courts and also appellate courts, and even reaching the U.S. Supreme Court on election integrity. A lot of those cases over the last 2 years have, of course, gone the way of the state legislatures and actually, guess what, telling election officials that you have to follow state law. So the latest example is that the New York Supreme Court has actually told the Election Commission in New York that they cannot use COVID as an excuse for mail-in ballots. So there's a lot going on in New York, and there's a lot going on in other states. And I was actually reached out to by CNN earlier today asking about what the Trump team and the Republican candidates and campaigns are doing ahead of the midterms to fight for election integrity. Of course, they framed it differently than that. But you can see that the mainstream media and the Democrats, of course, are trying always to shape election integrity as somehow election suppression, election deniers, those types of ridiculous sorts of name calling and assertions that don't actually point to the facts of what election integrity genuinely is. The courts are starting to agree with the Republican-led challenges and some of these nonprofits as well that simply just want every legal vote to count fairly, and for all of these election commissions and the secretaries of state to follow election law that's established by the state legislature. And as we are starting to move past 2020 and into the 2022 election, which is just 2 weeks away. I hope everyone votes. But we're getting past kind of that vitriol and of course, the myopic focus just on Donald Trump, who somehow in the midst of this is the only candidate in American legal history that can't challenge the results of his own election. But we're seeing that courts now are starting to finally weigh in and say, yes, sorry, you got to follow the law. That's what they should have done in 2020. That's what they're starting to do finally. And I hope that we will start seeing some great results like this one, like others that we've seen in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Georgia, a lot of other states over the last 2 years that are really focused on ensuring that state law is followed and that elections are administered according to the rules. That's all that anybody wants. So don't let them call you an election denier or say that Republicans and conservatives are for for election suppression or voter suppression. No, we want to make sure that people vote legally and in the manner that the state legislature wants to set up. So these are great decisions. We are moving forward with election integrity. There's been a lot of work done in the last 2 years. You can be encouraged. There's still time to get out and volunteer as a poll watcher, as an election official yourself, and of course, get out and vote. So the other big case that's going on, there's actually an article today in PJ Media by our good friend Hans von Spakovsky from the Heritage Foundation, and also Zach Smith. And this is talking about, so the headline is "The Justice Department Gets Smacked Down." Love the headline, right? So on September 20th, and now I'm reading from this article, on September 20th, we reported an outrageous subpoena served by the U.S. Justice Department on Eagle Forum of Alabama. So you all know Eagle Forum. That was originally Phyllis Schlafly. They do a lot of great work in the conservative movement. And this is yet another case that shows how Biden's DOJ is anything but a Department of Justice. They're simply targeting conservatives unfairly, pro-life activists and conservative advocates of all issues. So this particular case, this article goes on to say that fortunately, in the face of vigorous opposition expressed in amicus briefs filed by literally dozens of conservative organizations supporting Eagle Forum's motion to quash or to throw out the subpoena, the Justice Department lawyers caved and narrowed their request, as the judge in the case put it, to, quote, 1% of what they were demanding before. But it gets better. At a hearing on October 14th on the motion, according to a transcript we have obtained, we meaning Hans and his co-writer, Federal Judge Burke castigated the Justice Department for its, quote, vastly overbroad and unduly burdensome subpoena, and declared that he, quote, would have issued an order to quash the subpoena if the Justice Department had not withdrawn almost all of it. And Judge Burke hinted that he would be open to reconsidering sanctions against the Justice Department. So what's going on? A quick refresher about this case. So the usual left-wing advocacy groups and the Biden Justice Department sued Alabama after it passed the Vulnerable Child Compassion and Protection Act, which bans puberty blockers, hormone therapy, and surgery to alter the biological sex of a minor. And of course, the leftists are saying this never happens. Why are you so obsessed with children's genitalia? And, they try to call us all of these names and ignore the facts of what's going on. But here, the suit claimed that the law violates the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. Eagle Forum is not a defendant in the lawsuit. It is a small nonprofit mentorship organization with lots of volunteers, ordinary citizens, and 2 employees, 1 full-time and 1 half-time. Its members, who were concerned over this issue, did what all of us have the right to do under the First Amendment. They spoke out, made speeches, organized meetings, and talked to their state legislatures. The article goes on to say, but because of their advocacy, they were targeted by the Justice Department with a massive, capricious subpoena that sought everything the Eagle Forum and its volunteers have done or said for the last 5 years on this issue. It was clearly an attempt to intimidate the organization, deter its activism, and perhaps punish them for exercising their First Amendment rights on a policy issue the Biden administration disagreed with. What does that sound like? As we pointed out before, nothing that the Justice Department was demanding had any relevance whatsoever to this lawsuit, since Eagle Forum is not the legislature that passed this law. Judge Burke himself echoed that point when he asked, quote, how in the world could what the Justice Department is asking for possibly be relevant to this case and its outcome, given that the issue is whether or not this statute is or is not constitutional. The judge asked the Justice Department lawyer, Jason Cheek, why the department had suddenly gone from asking for everything we can think of down to what we're really asking is just for one thing, and the subpoena before this hearing. The only answer the lawyer was able to squeak out was that the amicus briefs filed by numerous organizations and his complaint that Eagle Forum did not first have a conversation with the department to negotiate the narrowing scope of the subpoena. He repeatedly complained that this thing has grown some legs, and so many groups filed briefs opposing his subpoena. In other words, only because there was vigorous opposition to the subpoena by multiple organizations did the Justice Department decide to withdraw its disgraceful subpoena. All right, well, 2022 is going to be a critical year for America. AMAC, the Association of Mature American Citizens, along with their nearly 2 million members. The fight to stop out-of-control spending in the president's Build Back Better scheme is far from over, and Congress is plotting more legislation that could hurt our seniors. The midterm elections will be a battle for freedom versus socialism. Unlike liberal groups, AMAC is America's conservative, action-oriented 50-plus organization fighting hard every day here in Washington and across the nation for our seniors. So I'm urging you to choose AMAC now. You will receive all of the great membership benefits, including AMAC discounts on hotels, travels, and restaurants, and your membership will support your conservative values. So go to amac.us/Ellis. That's amac.us/ELLIS to become an AMAC member now. So joining me now is Chris Ullman with Eagle Forum. So Chris, this case seems like it's just yet another instance of the Biden Department of Justice really not pursuing justice, but seeking only to punish and attack and intimidate organizations like Eagle Forum that simply object to some of these outrageous laws and really just want to protect our kids.
You are so right, Jenna. You know, the origin of this legislation in Alabama was a group of women came together and said, this is a very dangerous thing that's happening to our kids, these puberty blockers, these cross-sex hormones, and we want to protect them. So they went to the legislature and they said, you know, you should look into this. And they did. They held hearings. They had 3 years of hearings. And they passed a law that was liberal activists immediately sued and said it was unconstitutional. And then the DOJ subpoenaed Eagle Forum, a non-party to the lawsuit, and said, we want all your records for the last 5 years. We were merely exercising our constitutional rights to speech, petition, and assembly, and they're seeking to chill our ability to do that.
Yeah, this seems so outrageous that they would even have a basis to seek any kind of subpoena response from a non-party. I mean, it's the right of anyone to lobby their legislature for any reason on any issue. So what even was their initial basis before they have now way backed off before this hearing?
Well, they claimed it was for information on the lawsuit, but even the judge said, look, this is a constitutional question. Whatever this outside group said is really not important. So the only thing we're left with is thinking that this was an attempt to chill our free speech. We also had 53 outside groups and individuals that weighed in on a friend of the court brief. That was just one of them. We also had several other organizations who just weighed in as well on their own. So we're very grateful for their support. But we definitely think we crossed the Biden administration. They don't want people speaking out against these puberty blockers, and therefore they are seeking to silence us.
Wow. You know, this reminds me so much of how the Biden administration, the FBI, the DOJ is attacking pro-life advocates as well and seeking legal remedies to try to use and weaponize the justice system in order to intimidate conservative advocates on almost every issue. And meanwhile, in the media, the left would have you believe that this type of hormone therapy and these types of surgeries on minors aren't even occurring. And so what's the solution that Eagle Forum is wanting here? I mean, obviously you don't want to give up anything. You shouldn't have to. It is protected by the First Amendment. But shouldn't there be some sort of remedy and punishment against the DOJ to keep them from weaponizing the system in this manner down the road and in the future?
That's a great point, and one that the judge actually mentioned. He did ask whether or not we were going to seek sanctions against the DOJ, and in a way kind of suggested that Eagle Forum do that. So we're putting that together right now. We've had wonderful attorneys that have been acting on our behalf pro bono, but it has taken so much time and energy away from the other good work that we could be doing, and also the work that the outside attorneys could be doing. So we are going to ask for sanctions against the DOJ, and we're hopeful that when the judge's order comes down, he really slaps the DOJ hard in his order. He already said, look, no administration is in power forever. do you really want this kind of subpoena issued against the ACLU or the Southern Poverty Law Center? Because if you guys do this against a conservative group, you're opening the door for another administration to do it against you. And so we are seeking sanctions in this case.
Good. I'm really glad to hear that. And I hope that the judge does impose those types of sanctions. And I really hope that this gives the DOJ pause, but also regular American citizens who have seen the rules so abused and misused, because it reminds me as well of the whole January 6th committee and all of these things to silence election integrity fights that, Hans von Sparovsky and so many other nonprofits and advocates are seeking. And it is just to silence so many conservatives from these fights. But it seems like the Biden administration really doesn't care about the precedent because they think they can get away with it. And then as soon as someone else would come in to hold the executive branch in the DOJ, if that's another Republican or, conservative down the road, then they would fight this and just try to distinguish it and say, well, that's not what we were really doing. And this isn't okay when, say, for example, a President Trump would have done that, but it was totally fine for the Biden administration too. And that's the frustration, I think, with so many conservatives, that they're seeing a lot of judges that will distinguish those types of cases and not say, no, this is the exact same thing. So how would you encourage citizens to get involved and to say, we still need to hold our ground. We need to fight these fights. We need to have all of this very loud objection to the DOJ so that we can have these types of national attention on these issues. And it doesn't become a precedent that Biden DOJ can do this to conservative nonprofit groups, but a future Republican president, hey, sorry, it's a totally different situation.
Well, there are a lot of good judges out there on the Supreme Court and the lower courts, and many of them are upholding the rights of all Americans to speak out. And one thing I would encourage people to do is to do what our Eagle Forum Alabama chapter did, is when they got the subpoena, they said, we are not backing down. We are going to fight it. And through fighting it, we have had all these other groups come alongside us. We could have easily turned things over. We're not trying to hide anything. Everything we've done has been in public. But these ladies, these volunteer women down there said, nope, we're going to fight. Because the object for DOJ isn't to win, it's to silence us. And so we've already won by the fact that we haven't kept silent and we haven't rolled over. And the DOJ doesn't care if they lose in the end, as long as they can chill the speech. And so if feel like you're being harassed or you're afraid to speak out, don't. There are millions of Americans who are willing to stand up beside you and speak out with you. And remember, if you stay silent, they win. But if you speak out and fight back, they automatically lose. And that's what I would encourage all Americans to do, is you have the right to free speech, to assemble, to petition your government. Don't give it up. The courts will eventually side in our favor because we have the Constitution behind us. We just need to stand up and fight and keep speaking out for the truth.
So well said, Chris. And that is such an excellent point, that it really, to the DOJ, is not about the litigation and how this ultimately is resolved in the court system. It's all about getting you to back down and be quiet and to chill your speech. And so they have already lost. And I'm so grateful that Eagle Forum and your volunteers in Alabama knew that they could stand up to this, and they knew that they could preserve this fight. And I'm very grateful to be able to amplify this message and to hopefully encourage all of my listeners to exactly what you just said, is don't ever, ever let them get away with that. We know our rights here in America. We will still fight for our rights. We have the U.S. Constitution on our side. And, I'm so grateful to have you on as well from Eagle Forum. Phyllis Schlafly, who's, your founder, was just such an amazing woman. I was with my good friend Penny Nance on our Concerned Women for America bus tour, and we were actually talking about the legacy and the history of, some of these just amazing women who have contributed to the conservative movement. And so just speak a little bit about that history for people who maybe aren't as familiar with Eagle Forum, the work that you do, and how they can get involved.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for those kind words. And Penny Nance is a friend of mine too. When I was working for Phyllis Schlafly and running the DC office back in the 90s, Penny was the lobbyist for CWA at that time. And so we both kept in touch, and now she's at the head of CWA and I'm at the head of Eagle Forum. And it's it's a great way that things come full circle. But Phyllis Schlafly started Eagle Forum 50 years ago. It was called Stop ERA Movement when she first started it, and she pretty much organized women across the country to speak out against the Equal Rights Amendment, saying that this amendment is not going to give women equal rights. It's going to actually hurt us more than it will help us. And those women that rallied around her and spoke at state houses all over the country, when that fight was over and they had won, they formed Eagle Forum to continue to fight for God, family, and country. You can reach us at eagleforum.org. We have a lot of state chapters who are very, very active, not just on the federal level, but in the state level as well. Eagle Forum of Alabama is an excellent example of the things that they have done down there with this bill that protects children. So go to our website. We have all our state chapters on there. We fight for the Constitution. We fight for pro-life, pro-family, great education policies, educational freedom, anything that impacts the family and women and men and children. We're fighting for those things.
Yeah, and every woman's issue is also a man's issue as well, and men need to be involved. And so I appreciate you adding that as well. And, I'm so grateful that there are strong women like you, like our good friend Penny, who are doing all of this work in the states. And often, it's not as highly recognized on the national level, but it's really the women and some of these, the moms and the women who are so involved in church, that they're the ones that are that see this at their home state, at their local level, and they are the ones that are so spirited to get out there and fight and to go down to their state capitol and to lobby, to testify in front of state legislatures. And you've had some really significant victories as well. So what would you say are maybe the top 2 or 3 issues nationally, or maybe in a couple of the states that you're really focused on this year and then also into the next couple of years?
Well, we are working on protecting kids with gender dysphoria against these medical treatments in a variety of different states, as well as protecting kids from the information that's coming into our schools through CRT and through this real trans agenda where they're really trying to sexualize our children. And another issue, one that really sets Eagle Forum apart, is that we're big defenders of the Constitution, and we're trying to fight any attempts to open up our Constitution wholesale to any kind of a constitutional convention or anything where in this media environment, we feel like it would be disadvantageous for conservatives to suggest opening up the Constitution to amendments. We do support amending the Constitution through one of the 2 ways that are in the Constitution, when the Congress sends it out to the states. But having a convention of the states is something that we're very concerned about. And there's not a lot of pro-family groups that are focusing on that issue right now. But there have been statements from the left that they want to pack the Supreme Court, that they want a constitutional right to preserve the right to kill your children through abortion, the constitutional right to allow puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones for children, these kind of things. And we think opening up our Constitution and allowing the left to take away those rights and perhaps our right to keep and bear arms is a very dangerous thing in this political climate. So we're very interested in protecting the Constitution.
Yeah, and I think that is a really, really important issue. And, the Convention of States project is very much a highly debated issue. And I actually had Mark Meckler on my show the other day to talk about his perspective, of course. And then, but I'm grateful also for your perspective, because I think a lot of people, especially in the wake of what happened in 2020, even with, Republican-led legislators are very concerned what delegates might do at a convention and to try to go against some of those resolutions or to add things to the resolutions, even if it stayed on topic. So I think those concerns are very justified. And I'm grateful for the work that you're doing to call attention to that, because it seems like, especially with the Dobbs decision, now that Congress even is looking at some method in some way to say, well, we need to codify or to even have a constitutional amendment to protect, quote unquote, reproductive rights, which of course you and I would agree that there's no such thing as healthcare when we're talking about abortion. It's a medical intervention specifically designed to cause the death of a child. And so to open up the forum to have that type of a constitutional amendment would be dangerous unless we were talking about the constitutional amendment to protect life. So these types of things and the process has to be fixed. It has to be certain, and it has to be in a way that could not in any way foreclose some of our rights, infringe on some of our rights, or get things that are amendments that would be truly dangerous. So thank you so much for your perspective on that and for your work as well on that. And I think a lot of people are genuinely interested in how can we protect the Constitution. So aside from the Convention of States, what would be the best ways that citizens in their home state, of course, getting out and voting as the midterms are coming up, but what are some other ways that you're encouraging your members and people in the states to protect the Constitution?
I think it's very important to get to know who's running in your local area and who's been elected. So we have an election here in 15 days. Find out who's running, find out what their position is on the Constitution, the best way that they think to amend the Constitution. But as we move forward, we really have to educate people. And, when we talk to people who are running for office, a lot of times they're like, well, I never thought about how is the best way to amend the Constitution. What do we really want to be in there? So we're undergoing a big education campaign so that people understand the risks, so that we can kind of gel around those issues that are most important. Of course, getting involved in your school board, whether you're running in the next 2 weeks or whether you're trying to get involved so that you can run in the future. And most important, politics is really about relationships, and it's getting to know the people who are elected in your area, whether it's your city council or your state reps or even your federal reps. Once you have a relationship with them, you can really approach them, talk to them about the issues that you and your friends care about. They're more likely to listen. Does that mean they're going to change their position if they're hard and fast one way? No. But even having their ear so that they can hear the concerns of a variety of different constituents is important. So I would encourage everybody to get to know your elected officials, be on a first name basis with them, share your concerns, and bring the concerns of your community to them, because that's really what they are elected to do. They work for you. And most of the time, they're grateful to hear from their constituents, even if they disagree.
Yes. And I found that's true in my home state of Colorado on the local level. And you'd be surprised to see how they say there's very few people that actually call them, other than, the paid lobbyists and some of those groups that, of course, they see routinely. But Chris, I'm also really excited to hear about your education plan, because I think for so many conservatives, it's almost a presumption or assumption that we all know the Constitution, we know how our government is supposed to work, and we're just concerned about individual issues. But those are a little bit disconnected from the basis of how our government structure is designed to operate and how we can use that as a tool in our arsenal to actually hold our elected officials accountable and say, hey, this is what this says. This is what you're obligated to do. So you may like a policy position, but sorry, you can't do that, or some of those other really great arguments. So I'm really excited for that. And I think that's a wonderful thing that not, any other conservative group that I've heard of is really investing in that type of education. So really excited about that. Thank you so much for coming on with me today. And as you get more into that education plan, I hope you'll come back and share that with my listeners and my audience for how they can get involved.
I'd love to. Thank you so much. This has been a wonderful experience. I love talking to you.
Yeah, same. And I hope that we'll connect sometime. I'd love to see you hopefully soon here in DC or elsewhere. Thanks so much, Chris.
All righty. Thanks. Have a great day.
Legacy Precious Metals is the company that I trust to give you good and patient counsel for investing in your retirement. The Biden administration has caused a financial crisis, and they have no clue how to fix it. Oil prices have skyrocketed, and when oil prices go up, not only do your expenses go up, but the cost of transportation and shipping spikes, leading the prices of goods to rise. And when and we are already seeing record inflation. That's the last thing that we need. Our economy is in trouble, and you need to take steps to protect yourself. If all your money is tied up in stocks, bonds, and traditional markets, you may be vulnerable. So gold is one of the very best ways to protect your retirement. No matter what happens, you own your own gold. It's real, it's physical, and it's always been valuable since the dawn of time. Call Legacy Precious Metals today at 866-528-1903 or visit them online at legacypminvestments.com. That's legacypminvestments.com, where you can download the free investor's guide. You can also go to my Facebook page, Jenna Ellis. I am a public figure on Facebook, and I just posted yesterday a really great interview with the president of Legacy Precious Metals, who is discussing why you need to start your retirement account even if you're in your 20s or 30s. There is always a great time to protect your retirement and invest, just like you want to protect your health over the long term. So go to Legacy Precious Metals at legacypminvestments.com or call 866-528-1903. MyPillow is having their biggest sheet sale of the year. You all have helped build MyPillow into the amazing company that it is today. Now, Mike Lindell, the inventor and CEO, wants to give back exclusively to you, his listeners. The Percale bed sheet set is available in a variety of colors and sizes, and they are all on sale. So, for example, the queen size is regularly priced at $89.98, but is now only $39.98 with our listener promo code Jenna, Jenna. So order now, because when they're gone, they're gone. The Percale bed sheets are breathable and have a cool and crisp feel. These come with a 10-year warranty and a 60-day money-back guarantee, so don't miss out on this incredible offer. There's a limited supply, so be sure to order now. You can call 1-800-564-8475 and use the promo code Jenna, or go to mypillow.com/Jenna. You can click on the radio listeners square and use the promo code Jenna. That's Jenna. Thank you so much to all of Mike Lindell's listeners and listeners of this podcast for making sure to support MyPillow and using our exclusive listener promo code Jenna. That's Jenna.